So welcome to today's deep dive. Usually, I think when we picture international borders, we just think of literal lines on a map, right? Like you imagine international extradition is just, I don't know, putting a criminal on a plane and flying them home.
Yeah, that's the movie version of it.
Right. But today, for you listening, we are unpacking the actual operational rulebook for Cambodia's Ministry of Justice. Specifically, we're looking at these high-stakes procedures for how they legally move international fugitives. Because it turns out it's not just stamping a passport, it's this crazy high-wire act of, like, diplomacy, ticking clocks, and clashing legal systems.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
every time you move someone across a sovereign border, you are balancing sovereign duties with human rights. You can't just, snap your fingers and demand someone back. Before anyone is even put on a plane, both countries first have to agree that a crime actually took place.
Which sounds super simple until you realize that different countries have totally different criminal codes. So how does Cambodia figure out if, say, South Korea's definition of a crime matches theirs?
Well, they use this foundational principle called dual criminality, and they specifically rely on what's called a conduct-based test. So Cambodia's courts, they aren't looking to see if the legal terminology matches perfectly. They literally only look at the underlying physical conduct.
Okay, so it's less about the label on the jar and more about, like, the recipe.
Yes, exactly.
So South Korea sends a request for breach of trust, but Cambodia calls that same thing embezzlement. The labels don't matter. As long as the ingredients are basically stealing entrusted corporate funds, it passes.
Right. The action itself just has to be illegal in both places. But there's another layer to this, which is the severity threshold. Because you aren't going to trigger this massive international legal apparatus for, like, shoplifting.
Yeah, I'd imagine extradition's pretty expensive.
It is incredibly resource intensive. So the recipe usually has to yield a penalty of at least 1 to 2 years in prison. Or, if they've already been convicted, the fugitive needs at least 6 months left on an existing sentence.
Okay, so the crime is serious enough, both sides agree it's a crime, and the suspect flees. Here's where it gets really interesting to me, because I always assumed the next step was an Interpol red notice, which I pictured as, like, a magic, globally binding arrest warrant.
Oh, yeah. That is a massive operational myth.
Wait, really? It's not a warrant?
Not at all. Red notices have zero sovereign power. They are absolutely not global warrants. They are basically just formalized requests.
Wow. Okay, so what actually happens then?
When Cambodia gets a red notice, a local prosecutor has to take the intelligence from that notice, just the information, and use it to convince a local Cambodian judge to issue a domestic provisional arrest warrant.
So an Interpol notice is literally just a loud alarm bell. The actual handcuffs require local permission.
Exactly. And the second those local handcuffs go on, a statutory clock starts ticking. Under frameworks like the 2025 Asian Extradition Treaty, the requesting state has exactly 60 days to deliver a formal extradition dossier.
60 days? I mean, why 60 days? That seems incredibly tight to translate a massive legal file and physically fly it across the world.
It is really tight.
Yeah.
But it's fundamentally a human rights safeguard. I mean, you can't just hold someone in a foreign cell indefinitely while another country gets its paperwork together, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if that fully translated certified dossier doesn't arrive by day 60, the fugitive walks free. Just walks. And even during that window, the host country is checking for mandatory refusal grounds.
Like what kind of grounds?
Well, you cannot extradite someone for a political or discriminatory offense, for instance. Though it is worth noting that assassinating a head of state is universally excluded from that protection. You can always be extradited for that.
Okay, right. But this gets even wilder when Cambodia tries to get a fugitive back from another country, because you hit this massive divide in global legal traditions.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's talk about the Central Authority, which is that specialized legal team inside the Ministry of Justice that handles these requests. What are they actually up against?
They are up against the fundamental difference between civil law and common law systems. So if Cambodia asks a civil law country like France, for example, to return a fugitive, the evidentiary standard is just probable cause.
Okay, so what does France actually need to see?
They basically just need a clear chronological narrative statement of what the person did. Just tell the story.
That sounds reasonable enough.
But if they ask a common law jurisdiction, like Australia or the U.S., a narrative is completely useless. Because common law systems are highly adversarial, they demand prima facie evidence.
Prima facie, meaning what exactly for the team in Cambodia?
It means the evidence has to be strong enough to justify an actual trial right then and there. Cambodia's central authority has to provide robust, sworn affidavits, witness statements, forensic reports.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they have to essentially prep a trial-ready case for a foreign judge who operates under totally different evidentiary rules.
So, what does this all mean for the Central Authority? They basically have to act as, like, legal chameleons, completely restructuring their evidence based entirely on where the fugitive decided to book a flight to.
That's exactly it. They have to shape-shift their evidence to fit the legal architecture of wherever the fugitive is hiding. It takes immense legal agility.
Which just shows you that international extradition is not just an administrative task. It's this really delicate, resource-heavy balance of human rights and international cooperation.
It really is.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. If a fugitive's odds of being successfully extradited depend entirely on whether they happen to flee to a civil law or a common law jurisdiction, is international justice truly a universal standard, or is it just a geographical